From a friend forging Keanu Reeves' signature on a contract, to Channing Tatum being threatened with a lawsuit unless he signed, you'd be surprised at how many actors have been tricked and forced into taking roles. Starting with the friend that got Reeves in trouble. Honestly, his role in The Watcher is evidence that not all of our pals are looking out for our best interests. In this instance, the so-called friend is Joe Charbonnet, who also happens to be The Watcher's producer and who documented a tour of Reeves' band, Dogstar. Turns out, the guy forged Reeves' signature on a contract to appear in the serial killer movie shortly after his enormous success with The Matrix, and he was so smart about it. It said in the contract that Reeves couldn't talk about the role or how he got it. Being a good sport, the actor chose to appear in the movie rather than deal with an annoying and expensive court battle. But then he did nothing to promote the film after it was released. Oh, and as soon as he wasn't contractually obligated from discussing the movie, our guy went all out. Yep, once the contract's 12 months were over, Keanu let everyone know how he got that part. And the stinger? He said he never found the script interesting. That's gotta hurt. However, Joe, identity theft is not a joke. Speaking of jokes, some roles really make you question your career. Like in the case of Jessica Alba having to take Fantastic Four: The Rise of the Silver Surfer. If you agree to play a part in a superhero film, you better be ready to reprise that role in the future, even if the film is a commercial failure. Jessica Alba, who played Sue Storm and Invisible Woman on the Fantastic Four squad in the 2005 film, was in this exact situation. The 2007 sequel, Rise of the Silver Surfer, required Alba to return due to her 3-movie deal. But get this, she hated the experience so much that she contemplated giving up acting for good. That's gotta be pretty bad. Thankfully for her, though, Rise of the Silver Surfer did poorly at the box office, and Fox decided to scrap the 3rd movie and start over with a brand new ensemble. Whew. To draw attention to the reboot, Fox even went so far as to remove its 2005 and 2007 projects from digital distributors. Little did they know, the new Fantastic Four performed even worse than its predecessors, receiving negative reviews and going on to become one of the largest box office failures of 2015. Well, now Hollywood contracts are a lot like your toxic exes. They keep pulling you back in. At least that's what happened with Daniel Craig. James Bond actor Daniel Craig has achieved great success in the role, but he's always been brutally honest about how much he hates the role and why he continues playing it. After the 2012 release of Skyfall, Craig acknowledged that he had never been particularly interested in playing Bond. Shocking, I know. Hollywood contracts leave no one, not even 007 himself. When asked about the possibility of additional sequels during the 2015 Spectre promotional tour, Craig amplified his anti-Bond sentiment by saying a big fat no because he had a life and he needed to get on with it. It gets worse though. He left fans horrified by saying in an interview that he'd rather break this glass and slash my wrists than appear in another Bond film. Yikes! So yes, clearly he's had enough and has finally given up his license to kill. Like, crazy to think that actors didn't want to do roles that made them famous. Like Val Kilmer with Top Gun. Yup, surprisingly, Kilmer had no interest in working on Top Gun, the film that made him famous. All of it was the outcome of a 3-film contract he made with Paramount. He went to meet with the late Tony Scott, the film's director, in order to get his agency off his back. This was after finishing the first 2 movies, Top Secret and Real Genius, and owing them one more. According to reports, Kilmer intentionally blew his Top Gun audition. But due to contractual obligations, he was forced to play Iceman in the movie. Also, after the meeting, Tony allegedly jumped in front of the lift and wouldn't let him leave, so Kilmer accepted the part, even though he believed Scott was aware of his lack of interest in making the film. All's well that ends well, though. Following Top Gun, Kilmer and Scott collaborated once more on True Romance. It's all history. Now, to become a smooth talker like Deadpool, You gotta get your lips sewn shut for Wolverine. It's a metaphor, guys. The studio essentially told Ryan Reynolds, play Deadpool in this movie or we'll get someone else to. Because he was connected to the Deadpool film before the screenplay was even written. You see, Deadpool, starring Ryan Reynolds, came before the feared X-Men origin Wolverine. In this movie, Deadpool's irises were shooting lasers and his mouth was stitched shut, and Reynolds hated every aspect of it. Plus, since the filming took place in the midst of the 2007-2008 Hollywood writer's strike, he was forced to write all of his own dialogues too. The poor guy argued that it was the wrong version, but eventually had to take it up. Which reminds me of something similar happening to Roy Scheider back in the day. Roy gained international recognition for his portrayal of Police Chief Martin Brody in the 1975 suspense film Jaws. But he wasn't overly thrilled to return to the 1978 follow-up film. So why was he the lone original cast member to return for the sequel to Jaws? 2 words: contractual obligations. Scheider had a contract with Universal Studios for several films, and they'd initially chosen him for the lead role in the 1978 film The Deer Hunter. Because of that contract, Universal was able to compel Scheider to return to his role as Chief Brody in Jaws 2. By the way, this was after Scheider left the movie because he was unhappy with the screenplay and was replaced by Robert De Niro. Talk about being forced. Now, things don't always go the way we want them to. I mean, Natalie Portman had no idea how she'd find herself stuck with Thor. When Natalie Portman agreed to play Jane Foster in Thor, she added some major acclaimed actor cred to the developing Marvel Cinematic Universe. When it came time to shoot the sequel, Portman used a good deal of her Hollywood clout to express her concerns about the studio's business practices. After successfully lobbying to have Patty Jenkins at the helm of Thor: The Dark World, Portman was rumored to be re-engaged in the film after initially being reluctant to return, but her joy was fleeting. Marvel and Jenkins had a falling out over creative control, and Jenkins was eventually fired while Portman was still legally required to appear. She never openly expressed her unhappiness with the project, but it was obvious she'd had enough of blockbuster superhero action. She told the Wall Street Journal, "As far as I know, I'm done," after learning she wouldn't be back for the 3rd Thor. Good riddance, huh? Anyway, did you know that things got pretty ugly for Channing Tatum during G.I. Joe? Despite the fact that Tatum appears as though he was meant to star in a film like G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, he wasn't exactly thrilled about the opportunity. In fact, he accepted the role because he was facing legal action if he didn't. Yup, the poor guy got straight up threatened with a lawsuit. Eventually, better options came his way as he rose to fame, but he had to work hard to complete G.I. Joe first. And guess what? He utterly hated the film and was particularly let down by the script. Whew. That's all for the actors who were tricked into taking roles.